In the summer of 1716, South Carolina didn't just sweat, it shuddered. The heat lay on everything like a curse, shimmering over rice fields that steamed like rot beneath the sun. Swamps bubbled and breathed. Mosquitoes rose in clouds thick enough to look like smoke. And in the slave quarters, labor continued under a sky that never offered mercy. But while the plantation worked itself into exhaustion, something far darker was preparing to wake. Far from the fields, inside the pale stone walls of Greyfield Estate, a meeting was underway, quiet, formal, and cruel. 14 men arrived in polished carriages, wearing wealth-like armor. Planters. Traders. Judges. Men whose power didn't come from God, only from chains. They came to talk about the colony's next prophet. And they came with one understanding: this time, they wouldn't leave alive. 3 days later, the sheriff's men broke into Greyfield's house and found the truth in a scene that didn't look like crime. It looked like ritual. 14 corpses, burned black, placed in a perfect circle around a furnace that still glowed red at its heart. Their hands were chained. Their mouths stuffed with raw cotton. The floor slick beneath them, not just with blood, but with melted wax, as if the house itself had been forced to witness. And in the center sat a woman. A slave named Espiransa de Lima. Not screaming. Not begging. Not pleading. She was sharpening a kitchen knife. When questioned, she didn't explain. She didn't cry. She only spoke one sentence, broken English, steady as fate. Justice burns slower than coal, but it burns complete. No one moved after that. Because everyone in the room understood what she was really saying. And the government understood it too. Within hours, Governor Robert Johnson ordered records sealed, documents buried, the entire truth swallowed deep inside Charleston's archives. The official story: a kitchen fire, an unfortunate tragedy. But in the streets, in the markets, and in the dark spaces between prayers, people whispered something else. A woman had turned the master's own tools against them. And she had done it so cleanly, so silently, that even the fire felt deliberate. The woman behind the legend. To understand Espiransa, you have to understand Greyfield. Greyfield was not just a plantation. It was a machine for breaking people. Its owner, Edmund Greyfield, was famous for cruelty so organized it almost resembled business. Punishments were public. Suffering was performance. Every punishment measured, documented, repeated. Fear wasn't a side effect, it was the system. And inside his home, serving wine and cleaning floors like a ghost in plain sight, was the one person he never truly controlled. Espiransa de Lima. She arrived years earlier, carried across the ocean like property, a Portuguese woman torn from Angola and renamed for convenience. She learned English. She learned routines. She learned which doors creaked, which men drank too much, which guards wandered at night, which conversations sounded careless, and which ones sounded like planning. Greyfield believed she was obedient. But she was collecting something more valuable than freedom. She was collecting memory. The kitchen furnace. In Greyfield's estate, there was one thing everyone remembered. The massive coal furnace, imported from England, built as proof of progress. It could burn hotter than any wood hearth. It held heat for hours. It fed dinners, feasts, and celebrations where the owners pretended they weren't surrounded by human suffering. To Espiransa, it wasn't a symbol of wealth. It was a weapon waiting for the right hands. She studied it: vents, coal types, airflow, temperature control, how to keep it stable, how to make it unbearable, how to turn heat into punishment. Day after day, she tended it. And no one noticed the way she measured. Because she didn't look like rebellion. She looked like service. The plan that took 15 years. For 15 years, Espiransa stayed quiet. She never showed anger. She never protested. She never ran. Because her revenge wasn't built on chaos. It was built on patience. While the masters drank and laughed around their meetings, calling cruelty discipline and profit order, Espiransa listened. She memorized names. Relationships. Secrets. Weaknesses. And slowly, the idea hardened into certainty. The day arrived, June 23, 1716. The Rice Council assembled again at Greyfield, 14 of the colony's most powerful men. They arrived dressed in silk, rings, and confidence. They ate. They toasted. They discussed everything they believed they owned. Labor, land, bodies, and control. Espiransa moved through the house like a shadow in white cotton, pouring wine, refilling cups, obeying without question. But the brandy she served that night carried something else. The moment the circle formed. Near midnight, the laughter shifted. Then slowed. Then broke. One by one, the men collapsed. Not from a sudden attack, something worse. Something quiet. And when they were unconscious, Espiransa dragged them into position, methodically, like a caretaker preparing a ritual. 14 bodies. A perfect ring. Their mouths gagged so their screams couldn't warn anyone. Then she sat in the center, at the heart of the furnace's heat, sharpening her knife like time itself. By dawn, they woke. And realized too late that they were no longer the hunters. They were the fire's fuel. Espiransa forced them to understand the truth written in their ledgers, names of sales, punishments, profits made from suffering. Then she delivered the lesson she'd carried for years. Not random violence. Not fury without thought. Just justice, slow, deliberate, complete. When only 2 of them still breathed, Edmund Greyfield begged. He offered freedom papers, escape, bargains. But Espiransa gave no mercy. Because she wasn't here for revenge. She was here for accounting. By sunset, the scene was over. When the overseers finally entered days later, the arrangement was still untouched. The circle remained. The furnace still warm. And Espiransa sat there, calm as ash, waiting for the world to arrive. The cover-up, and the legend. The government tried to bury the story. No trial. No funeral. No witnesses. Espiransa was supposedly sold again, shipped away, claimed dead of fever. But rumors traveled faster than officials could ride. People said she was seen in Spanish ports. People said she survived. People said she didn't just escape, she returned to teach. And soon, the plantations began burning. Not in random disasters. In patterns. In whispers. In timing. A work chant carried hidden meaning. A lullaby sounded different in the dark. Overseers vanished. Poison appeared where it shouldn't. And every time the masters tried to suppress it, the legend grew stronger. Because fear can't erase memory. The line that lived after her. Years passed. Laws tightened. Movement restricted. Even songs were punished. But in slave communities, stories survived and turned into instruction. By the time rebellions erupted, people claimed the same thing again and again. The fire remembers. Not just as a ghost story. But as a warning. A promise that cruelty doesn't end when the powerful believe they've won. Final echo, vintage ending. Centuries later, the past returned anyway. Archaeologists excavated Greyfield's kitchen and found strange evidence, circular, fused, deliberate, as if the furnace's heat had been aimed. Then lightning struck during a storm, and locals reported something they couldn't explain: grass scorched in a perfect ring. And in the wind, faint as smoke. Some said they heard a woman humming a lullaby no one could fully translate. A slow song in Portuguese. And a final phrase spoken like prophecy. Justice burns slower than coal, but it burns complete.